Greetings and welcome to Stowbutter's Elite TFO training. Today's TFO is Brotherhood of the Sword Elite, a ground TFO. Let's start with objectives.
The main objectives of this TFO are to disable the tech in 4 different locations: the courtyard, fire lake, forge, and challenge floor. Approach each console and activate it. Then the team must shut down 2 more secondary devices that appear within 15 seconds of the first activation. Each device stage has a 3.5-minute window to complete. At the fire lake and forge, there are secondary objectives. On normal, only 1 secondary objective will activate. It is optional. On advanced, both secondary objectives will activate. Both are optional. On elite, it is critical that both secondary objectives must be completed before all the devices are deactivated, or the mission will fail. Once all 4 Iconian devices are shut down, move to the Great Hall and defeat the Herald to complete the TFO. Further discussion of the mission objectives and how to complete them will be provided during the video walkthrough.
Thank you. Now on to risks and rewards. This TFO needs significant coordination, or at least map knowledge, because you cannot solo carry it. At least one other player must know how to work the devices, because a single player cannot deactivate both devices. The team will also struggle to complete the map within the time limit if they don't understand the win conditions, and it is possible to fail the mission if your teammates deactivate the devices before secondary objectives are completed. Enemy damage is moderately high. Well-built ground characters will find Iconian Heralds less threatening than Borg or Nakul, but they can pose a challenge for players with less optimized builds. Quickly clearing the enemy groups does not advance the TFO, but it's hard to complete the objectives if you are dead, so some level of damage is needed if for no other reason than to escort the operative at the forge. This TFO awards a moderate amount of Iconian or fleet marks, and there are absolutely no time gates on it, so it can be completed in under 4 minutes with a good team. The adversaries on this TFO are Iconian Heralds. The most dangerous Iconian attack is the red gravimetric detonations and the cone-shaped attacks that the Defilers use. These can knock down player characters, which interrupts device deactivation and inflicts damage. Simply put, avoid the red areas on the ground. Most Iconian Heralds will despawn on successful completion of a room's device's deactivation, but the melee-focused fuse constructs will persist. The general recommendation is to ignore them and keep moving. Lastly, be aware of the Defilers, as they can cause significant damage to players if not defeated quickly. We will show the objectives in more depth in the video walkthrough of this TFO, but in summary, the first and 4th stages have no secondaries, so simply clear as many Iconians as you need to not worry about dying, and then deactivate the consoles and devices. In the 2nd and 3rd stages, there are secondary objectives that must be completed before the devices in that room are deactivated, or the mission will fail. Once all 4 devices are shut down, only the Herald leader has to be defeated. The rest of the attendants in that room are superfluous. Lastly, while we're going to cover in detail how to play this TFO properly, please be patient with random teammates who haven't watched this video, don't know better, and might not read or listen to attempts to explain it quickly. If it fails, it's a fast TFO, this is a game, it's supposed to be fun. So please be patient with random teammates who don't know better and cause you to fail. Now, combat footage will be shown to illustrate the principles discussed previously. The goal of this section is not to illustrate perfect run execution or the fastest possible completion. In fact, we're intentionally going to take it a little bit slower to illustrate how a solo player could help their team complete the map. We are also going to provide an example of how to successfully complete the map with all objectives and without dying.
Editor's note: since this TFO is unusual in that it requires a minimum of 2 players to complete, we're showing footage from 2 coordinated players side by side in the same run of the TFO. Arrows will show you important objectives as each player completes them. While done with a team of 4, we specifically coordinated only 2 players to complete all objectives. The other players just provided fire support.
As stated, most of this TFO consists of 4 rooms, each with a centrally located Iconian console. Move to it and deactivate it, which will summon 2 other Iconian devices near blue gateways. Those sites must also be deactivated by pressing F within 15 seconds of triggering the initial console. Moving or being knocked down will interrupt the activation. Also, there is a time limit of 3.5 minutes for each stage. The first stage in the courtyard has no secondary objectives. Activate the central console and spot the summoned devices. The second stage is the Fire Lake. To assist the Honor Guard, simply clear the enemies by their location. The fire team is somewhat more involved. Approach their location at the far end of the hall and press F by them to start their movement. They will move along the fire lake to the other side and must be kept alive during that time. Only once they reach the other side can the Iconian tech be safely activated and both devices be shut down. On Elite, it cannot be stressed enough that both secondary objectives must be completed before all the devices are deactivated, or the mission will fail. If you are tired of hearing us say this, it's because it happens a lot. It might take more than one activation to have the team positioned properly, so be prepared for the console to need a couple of attempts before both devices can be deactivated successfully. On normal or in event mode, only one of the secondary objectives will activate, and it is optional. On advanced, both secondary objectives will activate, but both are optional.
The devices are resetting. Synchronize and try again. Initiate shutdowns at the same time. You have 15 seconds to disable the other two Iconian devices simultaneously.
The third stage is the Forge, and the same rules as the second stage apply for secondary objectives, depending on whether you are on normal, advanced, or elite. On elite, both secondary objectives are mandatory. Releasing the targs is straightforward. Simply move to their enclosure on the right side from where you entered that room and press F on the gate to release them. The Syndicate operative is the most common failure point in this TFO. To safely escort him, defeat the initial group of enemies by the Iconian console and move to his location in the corner. Press F to start him moving. He is rather fragile and prone to attempting to fight Iconians, so it's important to clear the enemies leading up the ramp and not activate the device, as that will spawn more enemies. Walk him up the ramp and down the hallway, and he should move into a door with a message of thanks, completing the objective. Once both of those secondary objectives are completed, resume your regularly scheduled program by triggering the console and deactivating the devices.
To disable the other two Iconian devices simultaneously. The devices are resetting. Synchronize and try again. Initiate shutdowns at the same time. You have 15 seconds to disable the other two Iconian devices simultaneously.
The fourth stage is the challenge floor, and it's essentially the same as the first. Trigger the console, locate the devices, and deactivate them. Kill as many Iconians are needed to make those tasks accessible.
You have 15 seconds to disable the other two Iconian devices simultaneously. The devices are resetting. Synchronize and try again.
Note that it is possible to activate the central console, move to a secondary device, and deactivate it within the 15-second window, but you will need at least one other player who knows to deactivate the other device.
A Herald leader is here. Stop it.
Lastly, move to the Great Hall and defeat the Herald leader to complete the TFO.
The Heralds are driven back.
Captain, if this breakdown helped you in your quest to play Stowe better, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. For more guides and builds, check us out at www.stobetter.com.